Welcome. Tonight I will tell you a story about life in a small fishing village in Scandinavia. Make yourself comfortable, save this video, and let it carry you gently into a peaceful sleep. Now, let us begin our journey. You wake to darkness. Not the soft darkness of a quiet bedroom, but a damp, pressing dark that feels heavy in your lungs. There is no glass window to filter the first light, no curtains to draw back. Instead, the world seeps in through the cracks in the walls, thin threads of gray, a whistle of wind, the scent of salt and wood smoke. The surface beneath you is not a mattress. It is a wooden plank covered by a woven mat of reeds and a single coarse wool blanket. The wood is uneven, pressing against your shoulders and hips. The blanket is scratchy, stiff with age, holding the faint smell of smoke and fish that never truly leaves. It keeps out just enough cold to keep you alive, but not enough to bring comfort. You pull it tighter, and still your breath rises in white clouds. The air is raw. Every inhalation is edged with damp. It smells of salt, as though the sea itself has seeped into the room. There is smoke too, acrid and sharp, clinging to your tongue, making your eyes sting even before you've opened them fully. Your skin feels sticky with it, your hair already infused. This is not a smell that fades when you wash. 'Tis the smell of this place, and it follows you like a second skin. Wood creaks. Somewhere above, the roof shifts with the wind. The boards of the walls groan as the gusts push against them. A drop of water falls from a crack in the ceiling, landing with a soft plink into a bucket set out during the night. That sound comes again and again, irregular, but steady enough to mark time in a world without clocks. The first sounds of life come gradually. A cough, deep and rough from the other side of the room. The rustle of wool being pulled over tired shoulders. The scrape of a stool across the floor. A woman's low voice, speaking words you don't understand, not loud, not sharp, just a note in the morning's rhythm. A door opens and suddenly the whole room shifts. The wind rushes in, carrying the cry of gulls and the steady, endless roar of the sea. That sound fills every gap, finds every corner, presses against your chest. You sit up slowly. The floor beneath your feet is cold earth, packed hard. It is damp from last night's rain. You wince as your skin touches it, as if even the ground here has sharpness in it. Across the room, a woman leans over the hearth. The fire has nearly died, only faint orange coals buried in ash. She blows gently, patient until sparks glow brighter. She adds dry twigs, and the flame awakens with a faint sigh, licking upward to kiss the bottom of a blackened pot. The room brightens in the firelight. Shadows stretch across the beams of the roof, which are black with soot, every fiber infused with years of smoke. The walls are rough planks, warped by wind, patched where gaps have opened. In the dim light you can see dried fish hanging from a line, their skins curling, their smell sharp, almost sour. They sway slightly when the wind pushes through the gaps in the wood. A pot begins to bubble. Steam rises, carrying the scent of porridge, grain boiled in milk, faintly sour, faintly sweet. A plate of dried fish is set beside it, thin and stiff, meant to be chewed until it softens. This is breakfast, no variety, no indulgence. only what will keep the stomach steady against the cold. You take a piece, bite down, and it cracks between your teeth, the salt burning your tongue. It is not pleasant, but it is what there is. Men stir, pulling on clothes that smell of sea and tar. Heavy wool trousers patched and coarse. Tunics dark with stains of fish oil. Thick socks that were never truly dry, boots stiff with salt. They wrap scarves around their necks, pull woolen caps low over their ears. Their movements are efficient, practiced, almost silent. Each gesture knows its purpose, as if repeated thousands of times. Their faces are lined, weather-beaten, eyes narrowed against the morning's gray. Hands cracked and swollen, the skin thick like old rope. They do not complain, do not speak much at all. A nod here, a grunt there, enough to be understood. Words are wasted when the sea is waiting. Children wake too, shivering as they crawl from beneath blankets. A boy rubs his eyes with a red fist, then pulls on a tunic far too big for him, the sleeves rolled again and again. A girl gathers kindling, her braids messy, her feet bare until she finds her shoes in the shadows. They move without protest, though their faces show the same fatigue. Even the youngest know their part in this place. You push yourself to stand, but the air steals your breath. The cold is not like the crisp chill of autumn mornings, you know. It is wet, heavy, clinging. It creeps into your joints, sinks into your bones. Outside, the wind howls again, and you hear the sea louder, closer, as if it waits just beyond the wall. You understand the first truth. You would not last a day here, because even before the sun has risen, the cold, the damp, the smoke, and the sea have already claimed you. The morning does not begin with sunlight. Here, the sun is more rumor than fact, hidden behind clouds that seem permanent, thick as wool. Instead, the day begins with movement, the sound of feet on damp earth, of doors opening against the push of wind, of voices speaking low and steady. You step outside into grayness. The air strikes you like water, cold and wet, heavy with salt. You taste it instantly on your lips. The village is already alive. Thin columns of smoke rise from every roof, bending sharply in the wind before they fade into the sky. Dogs bark, weaving between legs, noses low, tails twitching. Chickens scratch at the mud near doorways, their feathers damp and scruffy, clucking at each passing step. Gulls shriek overhead, circling and diving, their voices so loud you feel them in your chest. The world is not quiet here. It is restless from the first breath of morning. A woman crouches by a fire in the open air. Her shawl is pulled tight, her hair pinned back, her hands red from cold. She stirs a pot of beans, the steam rising into the damp, carrying with it a smell both sharp and comforting. Beside her, another woman squats over a net. The net is enormous, a tangled mountain of rope and knots. Her fingers move quickly, slipping cord through loops, tying knots so tight they squeak under strain. She does not look down. Her hands know this work better than her eyes. The skin on her palms is cracked, her nails broken, but she works without pause. Children carry small loads, each one given a task that fits their size. A boy no older than 8 staggers under the weight of a bucket sloshing with water. It splashes over his arms, soaks into his wool tunic, but he keeps moving, his jaw clenched. Another child, smaller, carries kindling clutched against her chest, pieces dropping from her bundle with every step. She runs back to pick them up, refusing to lose even a single stick. A toddler sits on a doorstep, gnawing on a strip of dried fish, eyes wide as he watches the bigger children hurry past. Here, even the smallest learn quickly, life is labor and labor is life. The men gather near the boats. Their figures loom dark against the pale sea mist, bent over ropes and oars. They wear thick wool trousers, patched tunics, boots hardened with salt. Their movements are slow but deliberate, each one knowing his task without need of words. One bends low, checking the knots on a net stretched across the sand. Another hauls a heavy barrel closer to the shore, his arms straining, his face blank with effort. A third inspects an oar, running his fingers along its edge as though it were a living thing. The smell of tar is strong here, sharp and heavy. Barrels sit open, their surfaces black and sticky. Men dip wooden paddles into the tar, smearing it along the hulls of the boats, sealing every seam. The wood hisses as it drinks the hot resin. The smell burns your throat, makes your eyes sting, but the men do not falter. They spread it with quick, sure strokes, their hands already blackened. Voices rise and fall, not in conversation but in commands, short and clipped. A nod sends a boy running for a coil of rope. A grunt is enough to summon another man to lift the other end of a net. The language here is not words but movement, rhythm, habit. You feel clumsy in comparison, your body uncertain, unsure where to stand or what to do. Around you, every person knows their place. The gulls dive lower now, bold and shrieking, snapping at scraps of fish left behind from the last haul. Dogs bark furiously, snapping at their wings, scattering them only for a moment before they return again. The sky feels alive with their wings, white against grey, endless motion, endless noise. And all the while the sea waits. Its voice is louder here, crashing against rocks with the rhythm of a drum. The waves break, retreat, return, each one spraying mist that stings your face. The tide pulls at the shore as if tugging the whole village closer. You cannot escape its presence. It fills your ears, your lungs, your thoughts. A woman calls out, her voice sharp against the wind. Children gather around her as she hands each a strip of dried fish. They chew silently, their jaws moving slowly, their eyes on the men at the boats. The food is not enjoyed, not savored, it is swallowed, fuel for the day ahead. Hunger is not something you discuss here. It is simply answered when the chance arises, and then the work continues. Your own body shivers, your fingers stiff despite being curled deep into your sleeves. The damp has already soaked into your boots, into your bones. Every breath feels heavier than the last, as though the air itself is work. You wipe at your eyes, but the salt from the sea only burns sharper. The cold is not simply weather here, it is a companion, always present, always pressing. And in this moment, standing on the wet sand, surrounded by nets and barrels, gulls and smoke, you feel it clearly, the second truth. You would not last a day here, because before the boats even touch the water, the morning has already drained you. For them, it is only the beginning. The village moves as if under a spell cast by the sea. The moment the first grey of morning thickens, the men gather at the boats. Their boots sink into the wet sand, leaving deep prints that the tide will soon erase. Each step is heavy, deliberate, accompanied by the muted thud of wood, the scrape of rope, the creak of leather. The entire shoreline becomes a workshop, a place where survival is prepared piece by piece. The boats themselves sit broad and low, blackened with tar that glistens wet against the dull light. They are patched and scarred from years of storms, their planks swelling and shrinking with every change in the weather. When the wind gusts, they groan like old animals. Each hull is smeared with resin, ceiling cracks the sea will one day pry open again. Every man knows this. The ocean always wins in the end, but for now their hands delay it. A man stoops to lift a coil of rope from the sand. It is thick as his wrist, rough as bark, still damp from yesterday's use. He throws it over his shoulder, the weight pulling his body sideways, but his steps remain steady. The rope leaves black streaks on his tunic, and he does not bother to brush them off. Another man kneels at a net sprawled like a grey shroud across the ground. He pulls one line taut, tests it with a sharp tug, then ties a knot so tight the fibers creak. His fingers are raw, the skin split at the knuckles, but his hands move quickly, knowing exactly where weakness hides. Nearby, tar simmers in barrels set close to small fires. The resin softens, bubbling, releasing a sharp, choking smoke that stings your eyes and tightens your chest. Men dip wooden paddles into it, spread it along seams, working it into every gap. The sound is thick, sticky, as the paddle drags across the wood. The smell is almost unbearable, a bitter weight in the throat. You cough, your stomach tightening, but the men breathe it without pause. To them, it is the smell of safety. Children dart through the chaos like small shadows, each carrying something just within their strength. A boy stumbles forward with a bucket of stones, each one clattering against the wood of the barrel when he empties it. His arms shake, but his face remains steady, proud of the load he carried. Another child drags a basket of rope, its end trailing behind her, cutting a long mark in the wet sand. Her small body leans forward, stubborn against the weight, until an older brother lifts it from her hands and sets it down with a grunt. She does not sulk. She runs off to fetch something else. Even the smallest know there is no waiting, no idleness. Women move in and out of the line of work. They repair baskets, test knots, check that the wooden tubs for fish are clean. One bends to tie a scarf tighter around her husband's neck, her hands quick, her face serious. Another wipes a smear of tar from her son's wrist with the corner of her apron, sending him back at once to his task. Their voices cut through the wind, brief, direct, never wasted. They are not separate from this labor, only set into different rhythms. The gulls sense what is happening. They wheel lower, wings flashing white against the clouds, their shrieks constant. They dive boldly, snatching scraps from the sand, dodging the swings of boys who chase them off with sticks. Dogs bark furiously, snapping at feathers, scattering them for a moment before they return again. The air is alive with wings, noise, and movement, as if the whole sky joins in the frenzy of preparation. Men line the oars along the boats, each one heavy, dark with use, smooth where hands have gripped them 1,000 times. They run their fingers along the wood, checking for cracks, for splinters that could tear open skin during a long pull. The anchors are lifted next, massive stones lashed with thick rope. They are lowered into the boats with care, for their weight could crush a foot, break a leg. Every tool, every piece of gear is both necessary and dangerous, demanding respect. You stand apart, trying to keep from shivering as the wind slices through your clothes. Damp clings to your skin, numbs your fingers, stiffens your joints. Even just watching makes you tired. The smell of tar and fish thickens around you until it is all you can taste. Your lips crack with salt, your eyes blur from smoke and wind. And still the work continues, steady, unrelenting, as though the people themselves are part of the machinery of the sea. At last the boats are ready. Nets coiled, oars stacked, anchors set, seams sealed. The men push their shoulders against the black hulls, boots sinking deep into the sand as they strain forward. The boats groan, scrape, inch closer to the waterline. Waves crash, spraying cold across their faces. They do not flinch. With each heave, the boats move farther into the tide, closer to the waiting sea. And in that moment you feel it, the third truth. You would not last a day here, because even in the preparation, before the first oar dips into the water, your strength would already be spent. The boats grind against the wet sand as the men heave them forward. Shoulders press hard against the tar-black hulls, boots digging deep, muscles straining with each push. The planks creak like living things, complaining as they shift. At last the bows touch water, and the sea welcomes them with a slap, cold spray exploding upward, drenching faces, soaking wool tunics in seconds. The boats lurch, then float, swaying impatiently as if eager to leave. Men climb aboard without hesitation, moving with the balance of those born to this dance. You follow awkwardly, and the deck rolls under your feet, forcing your body to stagger, your stomach tightening. For them it is solid ground, for you it is shifting, unreliable, alive. Oars slide into their notches. They are long, heavy, polished by years of hands darkened with sweat and salt. The men grip them in silence, their knuckles pale, their arms taut. A single word passes from the man at the bow. The bodies bend forward together, backs curving, shoulders tightening. The oars dip as one into the water, vanish for a heartbeat, then rise again, streaming silver drops that fall back with a hiss. The boat lurches forward, carried by the rhythm. Rowing is a language here, spoken without words. Lean forward, pull back, breathe, repeat. The men move like parts of a single machine, their breaths fogging in time, their boots braced against the planks. The wood groans with every pull, the sea resists with every stroke. You try to copy them, but the oar is heavy, the water cruel. It drags at your arms, pulls at your shoulders. Your muscles tremble almost immediately. The rough wood burns your palms. The men do not glance at you, their rhythm must not break. If you fall behind, it is only your weakness exposed, not theirs. The shoreline fades. The smoke from the huts disappears into the mist. The cries of children and dogs are swallowed by distance. Around you there is only water, grey upon grey, stretching into forever. The sky and the sea blur into one horizonless plain. You have never felt so far from land, so far from safety. The waves rise and fall in slow rolling swells. One moment the horizon lifts above you, the next it drops away, leaving you staring into a hollow of water that seems ready to swallow the boat whole. The planks shudder with each impact, seams straining, tar hissing as it meets cold spray. Your stomach lurches with every rise, every fall, until nausea coils deep inside. The men ignore it. Their bodies sway with the rhythm, practiced, unshaken. For them this is not chaos, it is order. When they reach the chosen ground, the oars are lifted, dripping, laid across the thwarts. The boat drifts. The men move quickly now, hauling the nets from their coils. They are monstrous things, heavy and wet, reeking of brine and old catches. Stones are tied along their edges to weigh them down. At a sharp command, the nets are heaved over the side. They arc through the air, splash and vanish beneath the surface, pulled greedily downward. Ropes hiss as they slide over the gunwales, burning across calloused palms. The waiting begins. The boat drifts, rocking gently, the men sitting still, eyes on the water. The only sounds are the hiss of waves against wood, the distant shrieks of gulls circling above, and the occasional groan of rope tightening. Time passes slowly, marked only by the slap of water. To you it feels endless. To them it is the rhythm of life. A sudden pull on the rope breaks the stillness. One man grunts, sets his heels, and the others lean forward to help. The nets are alive now, thrashing beneath the surface. Together they haul, muscles straining, shoulders bulging, veins rising against skin hardened by years. The ropes cut into their hands, leaving red grooves. Slowly, hand over hand, the catch rises. The nets break the surface, dripping, shimmering. Silver bodies thrash wildly, tails slapping, scales flashing like shards of light. The boat rocks violently under the sudden weight. Water sprays, stinging your face, soaking your clothes. The smell is overwhelming. Raw fish, salt, blood, life dragged unwilling from the sea. The men heave the nets onto the deck. Fish spill out in a glittering flood, writhing, gasping, bodies striking against wood, against boots, against one another. Knives flash instantly, steel glinting in grey light. Quick practice strokes, slit bellies, cut gills, spill entrails. Blood runs across the planks, mixing with seawater into a red-brown slurry that soaks into your boots. The gulls scream louder, diving recklessly, tearing at the scraps tossed aside. There is no pause. Nets are coiled again, thrown out again, hauled again. Each cycle is the same: cast, wait, pull, gut. The boat becomes a factory of motion, every man a part of its relentless machine. Your arms ache just watching. Your stomach heaves from the stench and the sway. Your skin burns where the salt has cracked it. Your lips split. Your eyes blur with wind and spray. Hours stretch, uncounted. The sky never brightens, the cold never eases. The sea does not tire, and neither do the men. Their faces remain set, their movements precise. For them, this is simply the day's work. For you, it is already too much. And here lies the fourth truth. You would not last a day here because the sea does not bargain. It demands your strength, your breath, your very skin, and still it takes more. The journey back to shore is not easier than the journey out. The boats are heavy now, burdened with the weight of fish, their hulls riding low in the water. Every wave slams against the sides, sending cold spray into the men's faces. Salt burns the cracks in their lips, seeps into cuts on their hands. The oars groan in their sockets, wood dark with damp, but the rhythm of rowing never falters. Each pull is steady, each breath measured. No one speaks, all strength is reserved for the work. The smell inside the boat is suffocating. Fish thrash in the bottom, scales flashing silver and blue in the grey light. Their bodies slide with the swell, tails slapping against the planks, mouths gasping silently. Blood and slime coat the wood, mixing with seawater until the deck is slick beneath your feet. The stench is sharp, metallic, a mix of salt, iron, and decay. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, to your skin. You feel it sink into you, as though the sea itself has marked you. Above, the gulls follow in screaming clouds, their wings black and white against the endless grey. They dive close, eyes bright, beaks snapping at scraps thrown overboard. Their cries are shrill, piercing, never ceasing. The sound drills into your skull until it seems the sky itself is screaming. The men ignore them. For them, this sound is as natural as the waves. Slowly, the land emerges from the mist. The faint outline of huts, the curl of smoke from hearths, the dark shapes of people waiting on the shore. As the boats draw nearer, the sounds of the village reach your ears. The barking of dogs, the laughter of children, the deep shouts of men calling across the beach. It is not welcome relief, it is a reminder that the labor is far from done. The boats scrape against the sand with a jarring thud. At once, men and boys rush into the shallows, their boots splashing, their legs wet to the knees as they grab the ropes. They heave, pulling the boats higher, water streaming from the hulls. Dogs bark furiously, leaping into the foam, snapping at gulls that dive for the catch. Children shout, their voices high and eager, as they dart between men's legs to snatch at smaller fish tossed aside. The unloading begins immediately. Men bend, muscles straining, to lift barrels filled with the catch. Two men roll one together, their feet sinking deep into the wet sand, their faces blank with effort. Others sling baskets onto their backs, straps cutting deep into their shoulders. Water and blood spill from the loads, leaving trails behind them as they stagger toward the huts. The sand darkens beneath each step, soaking in the day's harvest. On the beach, women are already at work. They kneel beside wide tubs, their skirts damp, their hands quick. Fish are sorted by size and kind, the largest destined for drying, the smaller for immediate cooking, the damaged ones for the dogs or gulls. Knives flash constantly, slicing open bellies, spilling entrails into the tide. Children stand ready with baskets, collecting guts and bones to throw to the waiting birds. The gulls dive in wild flurries, their wings beating against each other as they fight for scraps. The air fills with their feathers, drifting white against the grey sky. The beach becomes a floor of blood and silver. Fish gleam in piles, their scales catching what little light the clouds allow. Streams of red trickle into the waves, carried away by the tide. Dogs lap at the water, growling at one another, their eyes shining with hunger. The smell is overwhelming. Raw flesh, smoke from the fires, tar from the boats, salt from the sea. It is thick, heavy, pressing in until it feels like there is no air at all. Men return again and again to the boats, carrying more loads, dragging more nets ashore. They move with steady rhythm, as if their bodies are machines wound tight. Their faces are expressionless, carved by fatigue but not slowed by it. They grunt, spit, adjust their loads, and keep going. For them, there is no end to this work until the boats are empty, until the catch is secured. Children mimic their fathers, hauling smaller baskets, staggering under weights too heavy for their size. Their cheeks are flushed, their eyes bright with pride. A boy no older than 8 struggles with a fish nearly as long as he is tall, its tail dragging in the sand as he pulls it to the tub. He grins fiercely when he drops it among the others, even as his arms tremble. A younger child slips in the mud, splashes into the shallows, and is pulled up laughing by his sister, who scolds him even as she wipes water from his face. The women work just as hard. They bend over the piles, hands red with blood and scales, their motions practiced and swift. One wipes her forehead with the back of her wrist, leaving a streak of fish oil across her brow, but she does not pause. Another hums softly as she works, her song nearly lost beneath the gulls and the waves. Their labor is constant, unbroken, as vital as the men's rowing. Meanwhile, the boats themselves demand care. Already men smear tar onto seams that have cracked from the strain. The resin smokes as it touches damp wood, the smell sharp, bitter. Others coil ropes, hanging them to dry, testing for frays that must be cut and retied. Oars are inspected, blades checked for splinters that could tear open hands tomorrow. Even after hours at sea, there is no rest. The tools must be ready, for the sea will wait for no man come dawn. You stand in the midst of it, overwhelmed. The noise, the smell, the motion press in from all sides. Your legs tremble with exhaustion, though you have carried nothing. Your stomach churns with nausea from the stench of blood and salt. Your chest aches with every breath of smoke and fish. All you want is silence, warmth, stillness. But none of those things exist here. The villagers move around you as if they are part of the tide itself, steady, endless, unrelenting. And here, on the blood-soaked sand, you realize the 5th truth. You would not last a day here, because even when the boats return, the sea does not release its hold. It follows them ashore, clings to their clothes, fills their lungs, and demands more, even as the day has only just begun. The beach does not empty when the boats are hauled high. It only rearranges itself into new lanes of labor. The catch must be tamed before it spoils, and the hours between tide and dusk are few. The whole village turns itself into a long, breathing workshop, every breath salted, every hand occupied. The biggest bodies go first. 2 men take a fish by head and tail and lay it on a plank slick with scales. A knife slides along the spine in a single practice sweep, then a second cut opens the belly. The motion is clean, the blade kept shallow, edge whispering against bone. Fingers hook the backbone, lift, twist, The fish opens like a book. It is not hurried and not gentle, only exact. Entrails fall wetly into a waiting bucket. A boy snatches the bucket away, legs pumping as he runs to the gull line, flinging the offal into a frenzy of wings. He's back before the knife has completed its next arc. Women stand at the salting tables, skirts dark with damp, hair bound under scarves that are white with crusted salt. They work with both hands, one hand scattering coarse crystals into the open fish, the other pressing the grains deep along the ribs. Salt hisses faintly against fresh flesh, pulling shine to the surface, drawing life from meat so that life will stay in people through the lean months. The grains bite cracked knuckles, the sting makes eyes narrow but no hand pauses. A girl with careful concentration carries a pan of salt from the store, feet placed wide for balance. The salt itself is wealth, scraped from barrels like coin from a purse. She spills a little, winces, and with the edge of her palm pushes every white grain back into the pan. No one scolds. She knows. Beyond them, wooden racks rise like bare trees planted in rows, the drying frames. Men climb the crossbars with the balance of roofers, their boots leaving dark, wet prints. Salted fish are lifted up and handed along from arm to arm, the chain moving like a slow tide until each body is hung by tail or through the jaw, 2 by 2, wind taking their weight and setting them to a faint, constant sway. The pattern pleases the eye. Silver, gray, the day's measure displayed against the sky. When a gust comes, hundreds of fish tilt together and then settle, a sound like a distant flag in a gale. Closer to the huts, the smokehouses breathe. Low doors are propped just enough to pull in a draft, and within, a dim amber world persists. Racks at many levels, fish darkening from pearl to bronze, fat beading, then slipping to drip into pans with soft percussion. A woman with a hooked stick tends the small fires, feeding them alder and birch, keeping them low and teasing, never flame enough to cook, only enough to persuade time to slow down. Smoke rolls up along rafters black with years of it. The air inside is thick, tasteable, and when she steps out to blink in the grey light, smoke pours after her like a shawl. She coughs once, wipes her mouth with the back of her hand, and goes back in. Between these stations of work, children shuttle messages and materials. A boy totters under a coil of twine as wide as his shoulders. Another drags a shallow tub. Thunk, thunk, leaving a trail of watered blood that the tide licks away. A smaller child is given the serious business of keeping crows from the racks with a clapper made of 2 bits of board. He bangs them together solemnly, scaring himself each time. When a gull drops too close, a dog launches from nowhere, teeth snapping water into spray, and laughter briefly cracks through the day like a bright seam. Hands never stay clean. Salt cakes into white gloves over every knuckle. Scales adhere to forearms like chipped mica. Tar blackens palms, then prints itself on hips and sleeves. The air is a braid of smells. Raw brine, hot resin, damp wood, smoke sweet with the faint memory of leaf. When a barrel of brine is hoisted with a groan of staves and slosh of liquor, the scent of iron rises, blood thinned with seawater. Your nose overwhelms, then dulls, then awakens again. There is no escape from the world's nearness here. Midday is recognized only when someone remembers to pass around a heel of dark bread and a slice of cold fish. People eat standing, back still bent to their tasks. A man chews while checking an oar's edge with his thumb. A woman swallows between two long, sure throws of salt. A child worries a crust until it softens while his eyes follow the path of a knife. The food is not a pause, it is a stitch holding work together. At the boats, heat blooms off tar fires in shimmering sheets that fight the wind. Tar bubbles, breaths of smoke snapping from its surface. A man dips a paddle and spreads resin into a split that has opened along a seam. Another follows with a length of coarse thread, sewing the wound shut with a curved needle big as his palm. Their talk is a handful of syllables, stripped of anything not needed. Their tight lift. When a younger man's hand jerks from a splash, an older one reaches without looking and rubs fish oil over reddened skin. The village's salve. It smells fierce, heals slow, works anyway. On a flat stone by the shed, an elder splices rope. He unlays strands with fingers that have thickened into tools, then braids them back together with a rhythm older than his voice. When a boy hovers too close, he tips the rope into the boy's hands and guides them once, twice, then lets go. The boy's first splice is clumsy, ugly as a scar. The elder nods anyway. Work improves only by being done. Net mending stretches the afternoon thin and strong. Nets lie in dark blankets over the sand, their mesh-like shadow. Women sit cross-legged, bone-netting shuttles darting through loops in a figure-8 that has no beginning and no end. The sound is thread against fiber, soft, rasping, ceaseless. When a tier spans many squares, two women lean close and count aloud in time with their hands, meeting in the middle as if they'd planned it, though they never spoke. An older girl grimaces as salt finds a split in her thumb. She wraps it in a strip of old cloth without pausing. Beside her, a little brother tries to copy the motion with string and a stick. His mesh is a chaos of knots. He scowls, then tries again. Behind the smokehouse, a kettle sits over a small, stubborn fire. Inside, livers simmer down to oil, a brew the color of brass and the smell of low tide. Someone stirs with a stick they will throw away, and the surface dimples and brightens with each turn. A woman decants the thickened oil into small glazed jars. This too is provision, medicine for winter, light for a dark hour, a way to make tomorrow less sharp. She sets the jars in a shaded corner, covers them with cloth, marks the number with a bit of charcoal on the door beam. Record keeping here is brief and permanent, scars in wood, not ink on paper. By the racks, a gust threatens to spill a row. Two men step in unison, palms out, weight set, and the line steadies, the wood creaking like a ship's rib. One checks each tie, pulling until the twine sings. Satisfied, he spits into his palm and moves down the row. Spit, salt, smoke, the adhesives of a world. The woman pauses long enough to rub tallow into the heels of her hands, where salt has carved raw crescents. A man scrapes his boot soles with a knife to free them of tar and grit. A child pauses to watch a beetle climb a post and murmurs something only the beetle hears. Then the thread resumes, the knife resumes, the clapper resumes. There is mercy, but it is measured in seconds. Clouds never quite break. Light thickens, thins, never warms. Damp weaves into wool until the fibers double their weight. Your shoulders hitch without consent, trying to shrug off the day's cling. The village does not shrug. It settles more firmly into the harness. Your breath tires from simply breathing this air. Theirs evens, stays low, matched to the pull and release of hands that do not stop. By late afternoon, the racks are crowded, the smokehouse breathes slower, and the boats shine with fresh black along their seams. Ropes hang in orderly coils from pegs. Oars lean like soldiers dismissed. Nets are lighter by the weight of repair. It is not completion. Nothing is ever finished here. It is only enough for the day to release its grip slightly. You look for a chair, for a door to close, for a clean smell to rinse your head. There is none. There is only wind edged with salt, smoke that has learned your name, and work that turns, patient as a tide, toward evening. And this is still the same lesson, only deeper now. The sea's demand does not end at the waterline. It continues in racks and fires, in knots and seams, in jars and ledges etched into wood. Even the pause between tasks is a task. You would not last, not because any one moment would break you, but because no moment lets you go. Evening arrives not as a golden softness, but as a slow dimming of the gray. The sky does not change color, it only thickens, as though someone were layering stone upon stone above the world. The village seems to fold inward, smoke rising from every roof, fires lit not for celebration but for survival. After the unending weight of the day, the people retreat into their homes, but not into rest. Inside the huts, the hearth is the heart. Flames gutter low, orange tongues licking soot-black beams. The air is warm near the fire, but beyond its reach the chill presses still, damp clinging to the walls, drops of condensation glistening like beads. The smoke has nowhere to go. It pools beneath the roof, makes eyes sting, makes the air taste bitter and heavy. For those born here, it is invisible. For you, it is suffocating. Around the fire, families gather close. Men sit cross-legged, shoulders hunched, hands stretched toward the flame. Their wool is stiff with salt, their boots crusted with sand. Steam rises faintly as their damp clothes begin to dry. Women move quietly among them, bowls in hand. The food is simple: a stew made from the smaller fish, chopped roots, and a handful of herbs gathered near the huts. It is salty, smoky, a little bitter, but hot enough to ease the emptiness gnawing at bellies. Alongside it comes bread, hard and dark, torn into chunks and dipped into the broth. The bowls are clay, chipped along the rims, blackened from years beside fires. Each one is shared, passed between hands, the last spoonful scraped before being set aside. A jug makes its way around the circle, filled with weak ale or sour milk, cloudy and sharp. There is no clinking of cups, no ceremony. Each sip is quick, practical, part of the cycle. Food here is not indulgence, it is fuel and nothing more. The children eat hungrily. A boy dips bread into the stew, holding it so long it crumbles in his fingers. He laughs at his mistake, though his sister smacks his arm in irritation. Another child grips a fish with both hands, teeth tearing clumsily, stew running down his chin. His mother wipes it with her sleeve and keeps eating. A toddler chews slowly, her head drooping, eyelids heavy, her body swaying until she topples gently into her mother's lap. The mother rocks her without breaking her rhythm of eating. The men chew more slowly, their jaws heavy with fatigue. Their voices are low, words short, sentences clipped. They talk of nets, of knots that slipped, of which lines held best, of which parts of the hull need tar tomorrow. They do not gossip, do not tell stories. Every word is tied to the sea, to the work, to the next dawn. Women answer with their own notes. How much salt was used today? Which fish will need to be smoked? Which baskets have cracked? Their voices overlap, weaving into the rhythm of fire and chewing. When the bowls are empty, the tasks continue. There is no such thing as idle hands. A woman pulls a wool tunic onto her lap, needle glinting in the firelight as she darns a hole worn by rope against shoulder. Another winds thread onto a spindle, fingers turning steadily, humming under her breath. Men sharpen knives with short strokes of stone, the rasp of metal on grit filling the silence. Oars lean by the fire, their blades checked for cracks. Nets are spread in small patches, children crouched beside mothers learning to tie knots in the half-light. Even now, in the hour that should belong to rest, the cycle of labor winds on. The fire crackles, spitting sap, sending sparks upward into the smoky air. Shadows leap across the faces around it, etching lines deeper, softening eyes, making the room feel alive. Someone hums again, a low melody, a song without words. Another voice joins, then a third, until a quiet harmony floats in the hut, blending with the hiss of the fire and the dull thud of the sea outside. It is not music meant to entertain. It is music meant to hold the family together, to remind them that even fatigue can be shared. Outside, the night presses close. The wind claws at the walls, making the door shudder on its hinges. Through gaps in the planks comes the roar of the sea, waves smashing endlessly against the rocks. Dogs bark, their voices rising, chasing shadows at the edge of the huts. From time to time a gull cries, though the darkness has hidden the sky. The world does not fall silent, it only shifts its voice. You sit near the fire, your body aching, your eyes watering from smoke. The stew sits heavy in your stomach, the salt burning your tongue long after the bowl is empty. Your clothes are damp still, steaming faintly as the fire warms them, but no comfort comes. The room is cramped, the air thick, the voices unfamiliar. You crave silence, softness, ease. None of these live here. For the villagers, this is comfort, warmth, food, family-pressed clothes. For you, it is another weight to endure. And so the seventh truth becomes clear. You would not last a day here, because even the evening, which should grant rest, does not free you. Work threads through every moment, and rest itself is only another task, something done together, something that prepares for the next dawn. Night settles without ceremony. There is no clear line between day and evening here, only a slow thickening of the gray until it becomes black. The fire in the hearth burns lower, casting long, restless shadows across the beams. Families stretch themselves out on rough planks covered with reed mats, wrapping in wool blankets heavy with damp. There are no beds, no pillows, no private corners. People sleep shoulder to shoulder, children curled between parents, dogs pressed at their feet, everyone sharing what little warmth exists. The floor is hard beneath you, every knot and ridge pressing against your bones. The mat is thin, the blanket scratchy, the smell of smoke and fish clinging to every fiber. The air is close, heavy with the day's labor, salt, tar, sweat, and the faint sourness of bodies packed tight together. The fire gives light, but it gives little heat. You can see your breath in the room even as you pull the blanket closer. The cold does not wait politely outside. It seeps in through every gap in the walls, creeping along the floor, settling into your chest. The sounds of the village quiet, but they do not stop. The last cough of a neighbor carries through the thin wood. A baby whimpers, is hushed with a soft song. Someone shifts, boards creak, a dog growls low in its sleep. The rhythm of breathing fills the hut, slow, steady, communal. For the villagers, this is safety, the warmth of many bodies, the trust of being together. For you, it feels suffocating, your body craving space that does not exist. Outside, the world belongs to other voices. The sea is louder in the dark, pounding the rocks with heavy fists, dragging pebbles in a rattling sigh before crashing forward again. The wind prowls around the huts, finding every crack, making doors shudder, roofs moan, walls flex as if they might break. From the distance comes the call of a gull, strange at this hour, long and mournful. Closer, dogs bark in sudden bursts, chasing something unseen at the edge of the village. Then comes a sound that freezes your blood, a low, rolling growl from the forest beyond the shore. It carries deep, as though pulled from the belly of the earth itself. A jagged silence follows, broken only by the hiss of the sea. The villagers do not stir. For them, it is a familiar voice, the call of a predator that has always lived beside them. For you, it is a reminder that the thin walls of wood and turf between you and the wild are no defense at all. The night has its smaller torments too. Mosquitoes whine in your ear, invisible but relentless. Fleas itch in the reeds beneath you, biting until your skin burns. A scuttle across the floor reveals a rat, bold enough to nose at the scraps in a corner. The villagers do not notice. These are companions of every night, as common as smoke. For you, they are another reminder that comfort here does not exist. You shift on the mat, searching for ease that never comes. Your shoulders ache from the hard planks. Your throat is raw from smoke, your nose stuffed from the damp. Sleep circles you but does not land. You lie awake, listening to the chorus of the night, the sea pounding, the wind clawing, the dogs barking, the gull crying, the forest growling. It is not silence. It is a world alive, louder than the day, pressing in from every side. And yet around you, the villagers sleep deeply. Their breaths are slow even, unbothered by the roar outside, by the pests within. Children stir and sigh, curling tighter against their mothers. A man snores softly, hand still resting on the knife at his belt. A woman murmurs in her dreams, her lips moving with words too quiet to catch. They trust the rhythm of the night because it is the same every night. They trust the fire's ember glow, the dogs at the door, the gods that live in wind and wave. For you the hours stretch long, heavy, unending. The mat grows harder, the air thicker, the sound sharper. Rest does not come. And so the eighth truth is clear. You would not last a day here, because even in the night, when you long for peace, there is no peace. The sea, the wind, the beasts, the insects, each reminds you that you are small, unprepared, and unwelcome in this rhythm of survival. Morning will come again. It always does. Long before you are ready, the gray light will seep once more through the cracks in the walls. The fire will be coaxed back to life, and footsteps will already be moving toward the shore. The cycle does not pause, it does not ask permission. Life here is a circle drawn again and again by the sea. You think back over the day. The waking in a hut filled with smoke and salt. The cold bite of the air as you stepped outside. The weight of ropes, the stink of tar, the endless preparation before the boats could even leave the sand. The sea itself, merciless, loud, demanding, never offering rest. The hauling of nets, the flash of silver fish, the cries of gulls, the stink of blood. The return to land heavy with catch, the endless sorting, the salting, the drying, the mending. The evening at the hearth, bowls of stew shared in silence, hands never idle. And finally, the night, crowded, noisy, unkind, with the sea always pressing its voice against the walls. Each moment was labor. Each breath carried weight. The day never gave you ease. The people of the village live inside this rhythm as naturally as they breathe. For them, it is not hardship. It is simply life. The sea takes, the sea gives, and they answer with work, day after day, generation after generation. For you, it is unendurable. The damp clings too close. The smoke bites too deep. The fish, the tar, the salt overwhelm your senses. Your body weakens before the morning ends. Your mind rebels against the sameness. Your heart longs for comforts that do not exist here. This is the final truth. You would not last a day in this fishing village. Not because of one single challenge, but because the challenges never end. The sea does not grant peace. The land does not soften. The people do not rest. Everything is part of a cycle, and that cycle would grind you down until you could no longer rise with the morning. And yet there is beauty in it. In the silver of the fish hung in neat rows, swaying gently in the wind. In the sound of children's laughter carried over the crash of waves. In the low hum of a song shared beside the hearth. In the endless horizon where sea and sky meet without seam. This life is harsh, but it is whole. It belongs to those who know its rhythm, and it holds them as surely as the tide holds the shore. As you drift now, you can let the rhythm hold you too. The sound of waves crashing, steady and endless. The murmur of voices, low and calm. The crackle of fire fading into embers. The slow, even breathing of a village at rest. Let these sounds wrap around you as they wrap around the people of this place. Let the cycle carry you, not to labor but to sleep. The sea will still be there tomorrow. The nets will still be waiting, the boats will creak, the gulls will cry, the fire will smoke. But for now you can rest. For now you can close your eyes and drift. The village breathes. The sea roars. The wind whispers through the cracks. And you, small, tired, fragile in this place, can finally surrender to the night. Sleep now.